So here we are at spot number 2, and this spot is out in the front of my yard, so to speak. Basically where the main road meets my yard. This fence here was the old goat pen. You can see the blackberries are loving it now that the goats are gone. And there's a row of cedar here that I've planted, and mostly big leaf maple, some awful ivy that I'm trying to eradicate as well. And so there's a roundabout driveway here. There was another person that lived here for several years, and then they moved out and we bought the property. It's about an acre. It used to have trees like my property back there, but the person logged it and to pay for their property taxes or whatever the situation was. But anyhow, so it's kind of a nice sunny area. It's open for the most part because there aren't as many large conifers that we had in the backyard there. So here you know, I would take a picture of the site, note the plant life. We've got blackberry, we've got recently planted cedar, we have maple, you know, that have been here for 30 plus years. But for the most part, it's kind of open except for the maple cover, and you can see on the ground there's a lot more maple leaves and things like that. We've got some ivy, and then we have another nemesis of mine, the buttercup, ranunculus arvens, which is this plant here, and has a little yellow flower, but its roots, it's very rooty. It roots in together and it just vegetates, propagates by vegetatively, just kind of sending out nodes, almost like a strawberry basically, and it just takes over a whole area. It can be kind of a indicator of damper soils though too, or soils that tend to be kind of damp. And so when I came down here and I stuck my shovel in the ground, I heard that. I hit some rocks. Then I took what we like to call the sharpshooter in the soil industry and hit that in, you know, and so not too many rocks there. You can hear it kind of going a little bit deeper without too much force. And so this soil profile is going to be a little easier to dig, and we might be able to get it out in one scoop. So let's give it a shot. Of course, you know, you'd be recording all this stuff in your notebook. The plants and the slope here is about the same slope as before for me, and it's also pointed pretty much in the same direction as well, so I don't have to, I'll record that, but don't have to change my notes there too much. Just talk more about the plants and things like that. So here we go. I'm going to try and dig. You can see there's not as much you know, Douglas fir litter. There's just basically maple leaves, ranunculus, blackberry, and trailing blackberry, which I love. Those berries are so sweet if you can get them before the critters do. And so you don't have quite as much of an O horizon out here per se than we did back there, which was under more coniferous litter, which is something to note as well. You typically have deeper O horizons sometimes under coniferous litter than you do under certain conditions like this with deciduous open area and with invasives and things like that too. So here we go. Look at that. I went all the way down to the shovel, which is almost 12 inches. And I'm going to go around another side here. And again, we kind of want the hole to be about 12 inches wide. Makes it nice. I mean, it'd be nicer if it was a meter, but I'll probably end up digging some deeper holes in some of these areas as well, just to kind of show you what it looks like to get down into those B2 horizons. Some soils can have several B horizons. So I'm going to lay out my, this is cherry. I'm going to lay out my bag here because I think I can pull this basically out with one scoop here. Could have snipped the blackberries around it, but I'm gonna try and shove this off as easily as possible. And so yeah, so we come around here and look again. We're kind of working with not much sunlight. It's a little late in the day, but also it's just been very overcast and cloudy today. So but you can already see, you know, you have your O horizon here, you have pieces of maple leaf and things like that. And then you have this ball of roots, which are these ranunculus devils here. Which, you know, I guess for certain soil critters, they like it. But again, you know, we're talking about soil health and biodiversity and things like that. And that's why invasives are can be detrimental to areas, is because they, you know, they take over and they only attract, you know, one type of critter or a few type of critters, microorganisms, rather than, you know, a whole host. If you imagine if you had, you know, a bunch of different species of plants growing here over a long period of time, you know, you would have probably greater biodiversity, less invasives, etc. But you can see the A horizon doesn't quite come apart and have the structure either that the other A horizon had back there in the back 40 underneath the coniferous forest. So we can kind of start to see the depth of it though here. You know, it's probably 2 inches or so until we get into this other material here, which then starts to take on a little bit of structure. You can see it's kind of got this blockiness to it, but it still is very granular, very well drained, but it is a little bit lighter colored, right, than the soil that we had up under the coniferous forest in the backyard. And then I imagine it's going to even get lighter. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this hole, and then we'll see what we've got laid out here and talk a little bit more about the horizonation and the formation of this hole. Okay, so here's our hole out in the front yard, which was much easier to dig. Less of the cobbles, sorry about the traffic there, but less of the cobbles. You can even see in here a little bit better because there's less coniferous cover. I've also sprayed the hole a little bit with some water here too. But I went down more than 18 inches this time. As you can see here, probably more like 24. And one thing I forgot to mention too before, you want to label how deep your horizons are. So that you'll know, you know, you want to record that. So anyhow, is this still recording? So the card's about full. I gotta finish up. So anyhow, we've got this hole in the front yard under deciduous cover. It easier to dig, less cobbles. You can see here too now the horizonation. We have that A horizon kind of up top, lots of roots here, and then it gets a lighter brown from the darker brown. You can see there's not a lot of large cobblestones, mostly smaller gravel, until we start to get down into this lighter colored brown area, and then I started to find some bigger stones, but it's still few and far between compared to what was there before. And then when I got down to about 2 feet, I started to really get into this different type of structure. You can even see here there's some redox going on in the roots. Here's a chunk. Oh, it fell apart. So it's not very well structured, you know, but it's still got a little bit more structure, right, as you can see, than this crumbly stuff up here. And so that's, you know, a greater amount of weathering going on here. We've got this soil being fairly damp, allowing for those redox reactions there in the root canals and the glaying of the different colors. This isn't as pronounced as you would see in a wetland soil, but nevertheless, it is still there a little bit. And you definitely have different colors in your horizons there. So I would say I've got like an O horizon of this stuff here, maple leaves and blackberry, etc., invasive ranunculus. And then my A horizon, I would try and measure in the hole too, rather than on this, but you know, it's probably going to be 2, maybe 3 inches, so it might be a little deeper than the one that was under the coniferous forest. And then getting into this B1 horizon here, which is this lighter brown colored, and again, it goes quite a ways. I'm more of a lumper than a splitter, which I'll talk about more later, but I would say just this would be a B1. And then once you get down into this stuff here, and you get this different, you can even see, you know, it's got some siltiness to it. I'm, you know, almost able to make a ribbon just with the moisture content that's there now. And but this is definitely a different B horizon. You can see there's still roots down there, you know, root growth grows. Again, this is why we need to have soil pits that are larger than you know, 12 or 24 inches even, because you know, basically there's a lot more to see the deeper you go. But this is hole number 2. You know, I would again take samples, record the horizon depth, you know, with my tape measure or my ruler, which doesn't go all the way down, but I could hold it at the surface here, and you can see there, kind of, sorry it's getting a little dark, but you know, the A horizon, you can see where the roots kind of go, is about 3 inches to here. And then below that is just that deep B horizon, B1 horizon, until you start to get, and I was just starting to get into that stuff down there at the 24-inch mark with that B2 horizon. So different, you know, profile here, even though we're in my yard, we're, you know, a little bit lower. And so the stream is right over here, and so maybe you know, finer sediments or whatever, this has some maybe a more alluvium impacts than what happened back in the backyard, where it's got larger rock. But also the interesting thing to point out there is The deeper the A horizon out here than it was in the back, and the deeper the O horizon that was in the backyard too, compared to here. So this is hole number 2.